I can get the PowerPoint up and running. So, let's. So many thanks for inviting me, and this is really just kind of offering some thoughts of where I am. You know, this is definitely a work in progress, and it's never something that gets fixed in a way, that we keep kind of evolving it and trying to shape it alongside what our experience of teaching it and people coming to the courses and getting their feedback. And so it's definitely a kind of dynamic process. So let's begin by just taking a few moments to practice. So let's feel our feet on the floor and settle into just this recognition, these moments of knowing by feeling and sensing and recognizing that we're here, that we're in this place, in this moment. And maybe there's no need to move to shape your position, just arriving in your body and feeling the sensations of contact of body in this place, on the chair, feet on the floor. And maybe the attention's still outside. There's sounds of stormy weather outside here. Be seeing, hearing, sensing the world around us. Or maybe your attention's dropped directly into the body and your focus is inside the body. Some habit of practice that's dropped in and you're already with your breath. So really listening to yourself and making the appropriate choice to where your focus needs to be just now. Nowhere's wrong, nowhere's better than another place, just recognizing all the sensations, all the messages that tell us that we're here. And we all very easily talk about mindfulness practice. But I wonder if you can reflect for a moment in your experience right now. What is it you're practicing? Maybe there's one thing you're practicing, maybe several interwoven. But right now, here, what are you practicing? And maybe another question to drop into your practice just now is, how does your practice support you? Or maybe the answers come in thoughts, in words, or maybe they're in sensations, in an emotion in the body. What sense of this? So maybe your attention has been settled in one particular place, or maybe you've been finding that the mind's being pulled with different sensations, different calls to sound or thought, sensation in the body. Making a space big enough to hold what's already here. Gently being with this. So inviting you now, no hurry, just to take some time to explore all the different sensations of this being here in this moment, this place. Sensations of touch, of weight and temperature in the body, perhaps shape of the body as it sits. With opening, if you aren't already there, to experience of sound, sounds in the body, of breath or of weather outside or other people nearby. Maybe there are sensations of we can smell or taste. And if your eyes aren't already open, maybe then beginning to explore what's here, what you can see in terms of shape and colour and texture. And this warm curiosity that we practice, receiving our present moment experience. So as we move out of this practice, maybe just checking in with yourself, what's needed, maybe a big stretch or a bit of a shake, or standing up for a moment or two, resettling the body to sit again when you're ready, just listening and responding to what's here, what's needed. So this session, I'm kind of really hoping to explore together. So I don't like to just be offering this as a presentation, really. So there will be time at the end for us to explore together, to have conversations, questions, and just see how this maps with your own experience of practicing mindfulness or teaching mindfulness. Your own sense of the world that we're living in as well at the moment, and what's needed in the mindfulness world just now. So that's been our focus, and the present courses team for the last few years really is trying to offer a way of making mindfulness more accessible. And the COVID world has changed that quite a bit, and but interesting that the approach that we've begun to develop really seemed to map into that quite nicely. And I don't know how true it is for everybody here, but certainly lots of people, my own experience and other people that I've spoken to, saying that they're finding it's much tougher for people to become engaged in mindfulness courses. There's not so many people applying. The retention of courses is not so great. So this seems,
can I just interrupt a minute there? Is everyone got, I think you might be already sharing screen.
Yeah, I am sharing the screen. Is it not
sharing the screen? Yeah, is that I just wonder if you'd intended that.
Yeah.
Wait, if you're talking.
Yeah, I had intended.
Sorry.
I can't see everybody while I'm sharing the screen. That's the downside of this. But yeah.
So it just seemed to me that the presentation hasn't started at the beginning.
We should have done. What can you see?
I can see
sessions intentions.
No, I can see the present approach continued.
Oh,
and it's still it's still actually the it's not the
let's try again. Hold on.
View, the participant view.
So I've gone to slideshow, gone to play from the start. What can you see now?
It doesn't seem. No, we're on slide 4.
Oh, that's weird. It's not what I'm seeing. Okay.
I got my experience forming the foundations of this approach. Sorry, folks, but it just seemed to me that
yeah, but it's not what I'm seeing, so that's strange. So now I've got the title page. Are you not seeing that?
No.
So maybe perhaps we have to, what do we do about this then, guys?
So
let's do a new share. Hold on. What do you see now?
Oh, got it. That's it. Yeah.
Good.
We have the technology. It's got a mind of its own.
Yeah, good. Okay. So this was the image you were meant to have up when we were practicing. So I really like this. This tree has grown supporting another tree that was chopped down. Okay, so now session intentions, you've seen that?
Yeah, that's it.
Cool. Okay. So to place mindfulness practice in the world that we live in currently, and to explore issues of engagement and motivation, to look at why we've created a present approach from our experience of teaching, and to connect our approach with current research evidence and recommendations. So that's what I'm hoping we'll do this evening. But as I said, there will be plenty of time to talk about all of this later on. It's, share ideas and come back with your own experience. So this isn't just me talking at you, I hope. Okay, so something about, thought it was helpful to just talk about my background a bit, because this is all the different threads that have kind of fed into me developing this approach. So I think as several of us are here, I trained as an occupational therapist, did some work in mental health for many years and a few years in social services, working with people with deteriorating physical conditions, mostly people with MS and motor neuron disease. So for those that don't know, occupational therapists are very into supporting people to live the life that they want to live. So the things that they value, being able to be involved in their life as fully as possible, despite whatever issues are going on for them. So that feels still very strongly where I am with the work that we're doing, and perhaps even more so in the present. I think it comes through there quite clearly. So I was introduced to mindfulness by Mark Williams, and I think Becca's here too, who was also on his first 8-week course. So we were his guinea pigs for his first MBCT course, as it became named later on. So I think that was in 1996, something like that. So I spent 9 weeks as an intern program for this at the Centre for Mindfulness in UMass. So I spent some time going to classes with John Kabat-Zinn and Melissa Blacker and Florence Meyer, Alana Rosenbaum, different Ferris Urbanowski. So different people had the opportunity of being in their courses and seeing how they taught. And I found that absolutely extraordinary. I was really happy to see that people could teach in a way that suited them as a teacher, and everybody responsive to the different groups that they were teaching. So I was really enjoying that kind of aliveness and the flexibility of approach for MBSR. So I was a member of the Centre for Mindfulness Research and Practice team from when it was founded, and I think I was there for about 10 years. I accidentally got into schools work in 2010, at the school where my daughter was at the time, and they were interested in mindfulness learning, but I'd had a bit of a false start with a different program and wanted some help with how to roll this out. So that became Pawsby, which is one of the missed programs now. But my own practice experience has been with Melissa Blacker and David Reinick predominantly. So they're Zen practitioners, and it was their retreats that I went to for a number of years. So I think my practice has been very influenced by the Zen approach to mindfulness. I'll say a bit more about that in a little bit. So this is a kind of gathering of some of the current issues, I think, for people accessing mindfulness. And the world we're living in now, there's a lot going on, isn't there? And has been for a number of years. So we've kind of got used to being under pressure. Somebody said that the levels of stress that are normal now are the ones that people would have been admitted to in the 1950s. So there's something about the kind of managing a lot of distress, a lot of difficulty, a lot of illness, death, you know, that's become a normal part of our lives, whether it's, you know, we're witnessing on the news or whether it's been personal to us in our families. So I think there's the busyness of everybody. Everybody seems to be much more active and involved in something all the time these days. I was talking to some young people the other day about Sundays in my childhood and having not very much to do for most of a Sunday. They couldn't believe that we only had 2 channels on the television and shops were shut completely on a Sunday. You know, and just because of the technology that we're living with now, there's never a time when we haven't got something to do, is there? So I think just, you know, we're used to it now, but I think it just recognizing how different that is to how it was just a few years ago. So there are diversity challenges that we all recognize. In mindfulness, we still very much attract mostly white middle-class women to courses. That's always the majority of people. And there's, you know, are we attracting a different population to a few years ago? You know, that's my sense. But I think many years ago there were predominantly people who had chronic health problems, had been through the system for many years, whether it's the mental health system or, you know, through hospital appointments, and the mindfulness was something that people were trying after many years of trying other things. And I don't think that's true anymore. So I think there's something about the people that are coming that don't have that same motivation, commitment, impulse really to do something differently from what they've been trying that hasn't worked so well for them. That's my sense. So I think there's also, you know, we're living with a bit of a legacy of mindfulness being misunderstood. Get lots of comments of people, you know, I tried it, but it didn't work. You know, I always wanted to find it calming. You know, I only do mindfulness when it calms me. It's, you know, I'll give up on it if it's not doing that. Or I can't do it, my mind's too busy. And lots of people now saying, you know, I really can't make that time. I remember having a group of teachers and one guy very angrily saying, when we were doing Peace in a Frantic World with them, I don't have 8 minutes. So that kind of sense of, wow, you know, that's a lot of pressure on somebody to really believe they don't have any spare minutes that they might practice mindfulness. Okay, so the present approach. So this has been evolving over a number of years now. I think we launched a program of some sorts in 2018, and it actually began with children, with the schools, and then grew into it being an adult course after that. So now it's actually pretty much the same approach for whatever age. The structure is much the same, the approach is the same. Okay, so what we're doing with the present is that we're learning to be more mindful. And you know, please don't hear that anything I'm saying is any kind of criticism of any other approach. But there are some ways that we've heard people coming to us saying that they've understood mindfulness as being something they needed to do. So they do their practice, they turn on their recording, they tick their box, and they feel like they're doing the right thing. But it all becomes something else that they're doing rather than dropping into a sense of being. And the being more mindful is intentionally not having any goal with it really, but to lean towards a state of greater mindfulness rather than some sense of one day I'm going to be fully mindful. And at the moment, I'm failing to do that because of all these other things I'm noticing. So we have a broader range of mindfulness practices, and we have an internal and external focus equally held. So there's practices with your eyes open, with you listening, moving around, touching plants in the garden or stroking the dog or whatever it might be, really validating that as practice if we're bringing an intention to be present with our experience and a warmth and an interest and a curiosity towards what we're finding. I had another course that was running, and there were again some school teachers, and a group of them sort of partway through the course, I think that was the Docby Foundation's course, but partway through the course, they'd gone into the staff room in the morning. Somebody had brought a cake into work, and they'd gone in and they'd sat down. They'd given themselves a full 10 minutes at the beginning of the day. They'd had a piece of cake each. They'd sat and eaten it without speaking to each other, noticing lots of different experiences, and then completely negated that as being mindfulness practice. So it's just really surprising that, people have this idea, don't they, of what mindfulness practice is. So when I kind of teased out, so why wasn't that mindfulness practice? And all the elements were there, but they somehow, because it was a normal thing to do, they weren't kind of recognizing it as practice. Somebody else was driving up to the school, and there's a beautiful drive up, and he was noticing all sorts, but then again, that can't be practice, can it? Because it just showed up to me. I didn't choose to do it, but he had chosen then, when it had become apparent that, he'd stayed with it then, and he then noticed more. So it felt really important that we kind of became more inclusive of what practice could be. So by doing that, we're creating many more opportunities to practice through the day. And there may not be long periods of practice, it may just be a few minutes at a time, but that choosing it and settling into it for a little while, we believe is really valid. It's a great way to change habits, to do it often rather than to only do practice once a week, which is what we were finding people were doing when we were doing other curricula with busy people. So the practice is intentionally woven through daily life and also practiced in stillness. So it's kind of both sides of the practice spectrum, if you like, all the way through. So we're supporting people to practice what they want to learn and in the ways that they choose. So this sounds really a bit too vague and kind of free, practice what you like. But it's been really interesting that different people have come saying, what they really want to be able to do is settle their attention on something, because they're so easily distracted. They can't settle to read a book. They wander away from watching a film, just everyday life issues of focusing. And then other people are coming to the same course, recognizing that actually what's important to them is that they've been so lost in their thoughts about other times and places that they've been missing lots of lovely things that are already here. Not spending time with, actually seeing one of their children smiling at them, or, not noticing a sunset, or, missing the feel of sunshine. So all the normal everyday things that are here anyway, not being able to they've missed them. So it's been really important to them to actually balance out the difficulty in their life with recognizing there's a lot going right for them in their moments.
Sarah, Linda's got a question. Do you want to take questions on the way through, or would you rather wait until...
Yeah, I can't see anybody, so you'll have to tell me.
Being your spokesperson. Linda,
yeah.
Do you want to ask a question? Pick something up there. Put your hand up. Would you like to unmute? No, it might be an accident.
Okay.
We didn't want to leave that if there was something
Yeah, thanks, Liz.
to pick up. I think that might be an accident then.
Okay. So what we think is really important is that we're helping people find how relevant the practice is to them, and doing that as early as possible in the 8 weeks. We had somebody again, school teacher, who, when it got to about week 6 or 7, discovered that his mindfulness practice was really supporting him bowling when he was playing cricket, and he suddenly got it, but that was so late in the course that, you know, it wasn't, you know, I don't know where he went with his practice beyond the 8 weeks, but it didn't feel likely that it had come soon enough that he was then going to be practicing enough to be able to carry on beyond the 8 weeks. So we're building motivation through relevance and letting people have choice about how they practice, and, you know, also underlining their clarity of intention. You know, so why is this helping you? What's happening here? You know, what are the mechanisms for why this practice helps you sleep, or, you know, helps you feel calmer? You know, it may well do that, but how's that happening? And what is it you're doing to help that, rather than what is it I'm doing, which obviously won't carry on beyond the 8 weeks. We need people to understand what they're choosing, I think, individually. So we've adopted a kind of continuum approach, which is around recognizing that all of us are variable in our ability to focus, in our the way that we hold our attitudes, that, you know, sometimes we may be hugely patient and curious, and other times really not. So it's not that we're supposed to be better at this all the time, but is there this place of decentering and metacognitive awareness that we practice in mindfulness? From that place, can we practice being more allowing of who we are and how we are, and really know, you know, maybe even smile at it, that we're going to be variable, you know, in the same way that our bodies might be variable when we're from early morning to later in the day. You know, we're not a single state, are we? We keep changing. So how can we meet ourselves however we are, and just let that be okay? Okay, is this making sense? So the present approach. So what we're trying to do as well, we're kind of recognizing that lots of people had a misunderstanding. We're taking it all very seriously, and there was a lot of kind of stern faces and fear, I think, about getting it wrong. Lots of people I spoke to, went around talking to as many people as I could find that had done an 8-week course. And what was really interesting was so many people were telling me that they'd lied to their teacher about how much practice they'd done during the 8 weeks. And, you know, what's going on there? Why would people feel they need to please us as teachers rather than get involved in the practice as being something that's for them? So that felt really important. So to have a more playful approach to this, and more responsive to the group, and with a genuine offer of acceptance and choice to however they want to practice, the style of practice, whether they're practicing as a meditative eyes closed practice or they're moving around in their daily life. And hopefully what we're doing is kind of really reducing the amount of shame. I don't know, you know, those of you who are teachers, you know, when you get to the inquiry piece and say, so how was your week's practice? And, you know, so many times there's a kind of look down to the floor, isn't there? And you know, oh, don't look at me, you know. So that's really trying to offer an approach that doesn't encourage that. You know, that people can just name what they're noticing, and it doesn't matter what that is. You know, it's the naming and it's the the interest and how are they holding what they've noticed rather than whatever it might be they noticed. Now I've come across a new word which I'm enjoying very much, hutagogy. Apparently it's one of the new educational terms that's in vogue at the moment. But it's the valuing the learning that's arising in the moment. So actually the process of learning being the key to this, not the outcome of learning. The process of engaging, being curious, wondering, meeting our experience and reflecting on what's here. All of this is, so actually the outcome doesn't matter. It's this that matters, the practice itself. So we're really encouraging them, anybody that's teaching the present, to be a facilitator. So, alongside people learning that, in terms of just asking, what's going on, what's happening, what's here, what are you noticing? So no, not presenting themselves as any kind of expert, but just somebody that's also practicing and learning too, using as much everyday accessible language as we can. So we're not kind of alienating anybody that doesn't understand some of the terms we're using. There was another hand that went up there, so is it Shilpa?
Yeah, it is. Hi, Sarah.
Hello, you're right.
Yes, thanks. So when you see students with their heads down and, you're to leave them to it, yeah? That's the best approach rather than sort of making them, you are aware that they're listening, but it's that whole heads down.
Yeah, I think I was naming the kind of shameful, I haven't done my practice, but please don't notice that it's that kind of people not being ready to go, oh yes, so my week's been like this. So something happening, the imbalance of power or something in the process of people feeling, a bit ashamed of whatever their experience has been. My response was often just to kind of name it. Oh, look, look what's happening here. So, and just reminding people that actually I don't mind how it's been. I'm just interested in whatever their experience was, whether they practiced or not, what was the process of it? Did they just forget? Did they think about it and then choose to do something else? Because all of this is really part of the practice, isn't it? So it's trying to, and the present approach, we're trying ways to not even set people up to have that experience. So it's kind of, they've got nothing to be ashamed about, because straight from the start they're being welcomed in whatever they're noticing. And actually we haven't been finding that people are reluctant to name their experience at all. So something's right in what we're doing, I think. Does that answer your question, Shilpa?
Yeah, it does. Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks. So from the understanding that we're complete as we are, just that we can't see this much of the time. This comes from the sort of Zen practice, I think, that it's a spiral learning that we're engaged in, really. A good example for me was my keeping journals during retreats. And I went back and read back on a couple of journals and realised I'd had the same aha moment several times. So it's this kind of, remembering and forgetting all the time, not, that there's I think some Buddhist practices are more about us being on a path, and, we're going to move towards being a better version of ourselves. And, my sense of, from my own practice is, that hasn't been helpful for me, that's actually just recognizing that sometimes I'm in touch with, with that I'm complete as I am, and other times I lose that completely. So it's kind of recognizing that, again, it's kind of connecting to the continuum idea of, we're variable, And depending on our internal and external circumstances, we'll have a different experience of ourselves and the world. So kind of recognizing that and just settling in with ourselves as much as we can. So working towards intrinsic motivation. So this is something that I picked up from the conference recently and was really intrigued by this kind of sense. Of course, we won't be able to continue to do whatever learning that we're doing unless we're already kind of signed up for this, unless it feels like it fits with us, it suits us, we know why we're doing it, and we're choosing to carry on. But I think most of the research into mindfulness it makes it clear that it's, we stop after 8 weeks. Then quite soon the impact of having done the 8 weeks fades away. I know neurologically that's true for everything. Isn't it? If you stop juggling or, driving taxis or whatever it is, the brain loses those pathways quite quickly. So it feels really important that we're helping people choose to carry on with this, knowing they can do it on their own, not needing us to be the ones that stay with them on the path unnecessarily. So we introduce neuroscience understanding alongside experiential learning with a kind of, just acknowledging that people learn in different ways. So having some clarity of some theory behind what we're doing, as well as the practice of experiencing this feels a good balance. And I'm really interested that, the difference between trait and state mindfulness. And I think most people recognize the state mindfulness. We practice for a while formally and feel a difference in that, and that might continue on into our day. But trait mindfulness being something that becomes part of who we are and what we do, how we live our lives. So being more mindful alongside everyday life, we'll be practicing trait mindfulness. Okay, so just to kind of, there's a lot there, I know, but just some key inclusion factors that I could pull out of all of that was a kind of really, as teachers and inviting participants to really embody allowing non-judgmental friendliness. So this, the attitudes around, let's just meet whatever's here, let's be with ourselves as we are. And kindness is just a thread through all of that, isn't it? That kind of willingness, that meeting, that allowing, and even the smile when things are not quite as we would want them to be, perhaps. But, oh, okay, there I am. There's me doing what I do. So the continuum perspective, that kind of willingness to allow variability, not to have any goal of I must feel like this or be like that or concentrate in a certain way, but leaning towards what would suit as well, what would meet us and support us in our lives. So active invitation to engage in learning and practices that suit this person, with genuine choices of learning and focus offered. I think we're all working towards that, but then whatever mindfulness teaching we're offering, but there's something about being careful not to suggest that, oh, well, if you can't be with breath, then do this instead. I think that straight away sets people up of, somehow I've not quite managed to do what I should have done. But if we can genuinely offer all sorts of practice, all sorts of foci, then I think people will engage in a way that suits them well. So I think we're offering a flexible, responsive, emergent teaching and learning within the present. You know, and as I said at the start, it really reminds me of the time I spent at the CFM doing MBSR, you know, many years ago. There's, you know, that was very much how they were teaching when I was there. So it was, you know, it's alive, isn't it? It's a process that we're in together. What's this? What are you learning? I remember a friend of mine and other people here I know, Grammy Pammy, that some of you will know, said very fiercely, I don't know what you mean by a teaching point. You know, just because there's, you know, we're not the person that needs to tell anybody anything, that we're there to help people discover the learning for themselves. So there's a recognition of a shared human and individual experiences. So both being true, you know, some things that are just because we're human beings, but really allowing other people to, you know, each person in the room to have different experiences. Oh, this is true for me. You know, we'll start mindfulness courses in different places, don't we? You know, our lives have been different up to that point. We've had different amount of mindfulness experience, perhaps. Some people come to courses with lots of experience already. So it's you know, being able to include a range of people, situations in the room. So I think we're encouraging this intrinsic motivation and autonomy to grow. That's I hope that's what we're beginning to do. So one of the things that I'm kind of proud of is that our dropout rates are very low. It's almost unheard of for anybody not to complete the 8 weeks, which I'm very pleased about. It feels that people are, you know, are engaged. They're not voting with their feet. And what I really like is that the approach has been flexible enough that it's been applied in all sorts of different settings and situations. So you can read them all there. But you know, really a really big range of populations and settings. Okay. So maybe we could pause now for some questions. Would that be okay? I'll stop share for a minute and see if there's any questions or not getting out of this though, Liz. I'm still seeing my.
I'm not seeing your screen now. It looks as if you're out.
Well, I can't see anybody.
Click on your Zoom icon at the bottom of your screen.
It's not there.
Anyway, we can see you.
Okay.
And not your screens. That's okay. And I'm just inviting, if anyone has got a question, if you actually go to reactions, put your hand up, you end up at the right at the top of the screen there, so we can see you, and I can tell Sarah that you're there, even if she can't see you.
I don't know what's happening here. There we go. Let's do a quick PowerPoint. Shall I try that and see if oh, there we go. I can see it now. That's good.
There we go. And no one's put their hand up, Sarah. No. All making sense so far. So we just give anyone chance who wants to ask a question. We will have discussion. We'll have breakout rooms later that you will have a chance to talk. Yeah.
Okay, we'll go back then. Let's see if I can start it up again. Where's it gone? Hang on, I have to rediscover it. Hold on a moment. So we get down to the so start slideshow, slide. Way back.
We aren't seeing it yet.
Try again. Technology, huh? No, still not.
No.
This is very odd. It's all here on my screen. It's, anybody got any ideas?
I think one of us called Roy earlier on suggested presenter view. If you select presenter view.
What is that?
It isn't showing on my screen, Sarah, that we're sharing screen.
I think that's the problem. I think you need to share the screen.
Okay, let me try and get out of this and then.
Or just leave it and it will be on your desktop. When you share screen, it'll be there.
But I can't get to share screen at the moment. It's not letting me do that. So. Right, let's try again.
Yep, we're there. If you can go to play from current slide now, it should be okay.
How's that? Are we there?
It's still on the page. It's fine now. But if
Try
it's presenter view, is it where you
share.
need to go presenter time? Presenter view.
Let's try new share and see that.
Although that actually takes us to the notes page usually.
Hang on, let's try one more time. Nice.
That's actually fine. So we could manage with that.
Well, it should play from current slide, shouldn't it? So.
Yeah, and that's the bit that's not working. But I think we can read the slide from there.
If it's in presenter view, there's an icon said from the left at the top.
My mouse isn't working on the big screen.
I think let's park it, Sarah. This is fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Just
Okay.
conscious of time. We do want to give people a chance to engage in some discussion, don't we? So I think if we see the PowerPoint, so it's fine.
Okay. So some of the research that was kind of interesting and felt current to what we've been doing is, you know, some of you will know about the Myriad research that was published during the summer about the schools mindfulness, the secondary schools. So some of the threads that were kind of pulled out of that, recommendations from the research, we're talking about school culture had really been improved by teachers being taught mindfulness. So the adults being taught mindfulness had benefited personally, but that had also then translated into a different culture in the school. That the adults are reporting less burnout, which is very important in these days, isn't it, for stress that teachers have been under. The study didn't get positive outcomes with conscript, inexperienced teachers. Skilled teachers did correlate with positive outcomes for young people. So, this is not surprising, I hope. And, the idea that actually the more we can help people to choose mindfulness, to practice because it suits them and they're living a more mindful life. And that's the place that they can share mindfulness with others from. So I don't think any of us would have been surprised by those results. That training does take time, and we can't do this quickly. That we have to be patient and let our practice grow before we can share it skillfully with other people. But the more that we're inviting an approach where we're explicitly continuing to learn together, rather than supposed to be finished and ready to be the expert that's delivering mindfulness, that feels like a really supportive way of offering mindfulness over a period of time. We were talking to some school teachers again who were saying that when they practiced approaches that were kind of focused on formal practice, they used it as a kind of recovery practice at home beyond a difficult day at school. But it was really hard to get their mindfulness practice through the school gates, because the culture, the life they were living in school, the busyness, the noise, everything, the speed that everything happens at school just didn't match the quiet and the stillness of what they recognized as practice. So practicing in other ways meant they could bring practice into school and into, and learn together. Oh, what are you noticing? Oh, I'm noticing this. Which just let them off the hook with having to be good at this and, an expert in any way, but sharing it and learning together and learning from each other. And certainly our experience when we were piloting Paulsby was we learned a lot from the children. They were fabulous teachers. So it seems such a shame not to share that, doesn't it? So that one of the results of the myriad research was that teenagers found mindfulness boring, and I think they probably say that most things are boring, wouldn't they? But it was something around engaging and making practice kind of collaborative and invitational, and that there's a co-creation and some flexibility and meeting the population that you've got. And really knowing this isn't going to be for everyone. There isn't a kind of requirement for everybody to learn how to be more mindful. If it's not for them just now, then that may be absolutely the right thing. And having said that, we've had children who've refused to be part of lessons in school over the years, and then actually it's them that have been listening in the back and being allowed not to be involved in actually actively participating, but they've taken it all in and actually really engaged with it longer term. So, there's a lot that we can learn about this, I think, isn't there?
I see Linda's put a message into chat as well there, Sarah. Yeah. Just saying that sadly the headlines
the headlines were awful, weren't they?
Yeah, the kind of general public kind of were led to believe that mindfulness had little effect. So, which I think you've covered some of those other parts, I guess, with what you've said.
But can I just flag up that we've got this penciled in for November, for a discussion in November.
Yeah, brilliant.
Specifically at that, because there's a lot to unpack there, isn't there?
And I think that the BBC just went with the best headline they could find. That was the kind of you know, but the headline was not the whole study by any means, and there are some really interesting findings in there, and you know, it's partly how research gets presented, isn't it? It's, you know, how they have to report the findings.
I suggest, Sarah, that we just need to be able to fit in a bit of discussion there, if we
sure,
possible, to give them a chance to feed in. So
Richie Davison, many of you know him as a neuroscientist over many years, and he's more recently in 2022 writing about brief practices, combining practice with everyday life, combining it with physical exercise, the value of all of that. So, you know, so really encouraged that he was supporting the approach that we were taking. David Treleaven, lots of people really interested in the work that he's been doing, and you know, again, just happy that our approach does seem to be very firmly trauma-informed working, you know, that we're genuinely offering choices, that we do have a flexible approach, that it is explicitly co-created, and that people are able to choose how they engage, when they engage, you know, to suit each of them. And Richard Ryan, he's the guy that was talking about intrinsic motivation. So he's a self-determination theorist. And many of you will have been at Dan Siegel's talk here. And so just really recognizing the connection of our work and Dan's Wheel of Awareness. There's a lot of similarity in there too. Okay, so on to, so for a few minutes, we're just inviting you into breakout rooms of, you know, 3 and 4, maybe, to just reflect on what you've heard. And some questions that I wondered about was, how does this approach fit with your own experience of learning about mindfulness in your practice or your teaching of mindfulness? How might it support you to be woven into your current personal teaching practice? And have you got any questions or experience that challenges this approach? So we've got a few minutes, Liz. 10 minutes for that?
10 minutes, yeah, 10 minutes in.
Okay, and then we'll
rooms. So
okay, I'll just create those now. So 10 minutes, and I'll let everybody know when we're going to call everybody back. So
fabulous. Thank you. Thanks, Rob.
And please, inviting you to make any use of the chat, because even if we run out of time, we can pick up anything that you put in the chat, and that will be really helpful.